And so intelligences that kind of, they began to oppress themselves very early on, and in doing so, utilizing what's popularly known today as the law of attraction, but which the ancients called measure for measure. So I'm going to allude to it as measure for measure because the law of attraction sounds really attractive and it's really good for a mass marketing consciousness, but measure for measure does not allow people to linger in the facade of this technology, of how it works, in order to use it to get the boyfriend you wanted or to get a fancy car or whatever superficial yearning the individuals are broadcasting in order to get you to buy books and sell movies. Measure for measure simply says that you're an angel. You're in a free will construct, and so your light has a very powerful ability to manifest reality before your eyes, and it is all dependent on the beckoning call of your heart. And whatever your heart resonates, that's what nature, the world, which the sages always knew that in numerology, what they call gematria, which is a mathematical equation shorthand for grand ideas. The word for Elohim, which is unified energy, intelligence of power. Any individual that has power is called El. Any energy that has power is El. The name Elohim or Elohim, the religious, they don't say the name because it's a holy name, but it could be also a not holy name if it's powers that are not aligned properly, so then they're Elohim. But anyway, the sacred name of Elohim is just whenever intelligences with power are united back in stream with source energy, okay, then they're called sacred, and it's called Elohim. When energies are aligned together, many of them, but they're not in balance with the true nature and frequency of all source energy, they're also called Elohim, but the religious don't have difficulty saying that name because they don't consider it sacred. So just as an insight, let's say the Old Testament, there are many biblical scholars that study the book of Genesis and the book of Exodus, and they relate that, this God is really angry and resentful. And understand that the true nature of source energy is alluded to with the name of the tetragrammaton. Pronounce it in English. It's called Shem Havaya. It's a 4-letter name for God that the witnesses call Jehovah, but it's not the proper pronunciation of the Yud Hey Vav and Hey name, which is an algebraic equation for the existential paradigm that we exist in between heaven and earth, in totality and oneness. It's shorthand, like a scientific equation, that name. So whenever the verses allude to that name, they're talking about source energy as true source, broadcasting from true love. Whenever it alludes to God with the name Elohim, then it's alluding to the collective intelligences that are in all different vibrations based on their various degrees of distortions, what they collectively decide. Let me give you an analogy of how this would apply. Okay, let's say we're in the time of Noah, and this is an archetype. I'm not saying there was a time of Noah. I'm just saying let's say there was a time of Noah. Let's say we're in the time of Noah and people were exceptionally corrupt. I mean, really corrupt. I mean, there was theft and pillaging and aggression and oppression, and people were really rotten to each other. Well, now juxtapose the idea that all these individuals are carrying source energy and source intelligence. And all these individuals are utilizing the law of attraction that I am telling you is not the law of attraction. It's called the law of measure for measure. And whatever you resonate in your heart is what you bring upon in your circle of influence. Now understand the disconnect between these individuals and the resentments that were bubbling, percolating in this space. Now, how would you characterize this Elohim? It seems pretty angry and resentful And yes, it wants to bring destruction to the world around it, because all the individual black holes all want it all for themselves and are broadcasting criticism and judgments about everything that's around them and harshness. And so that's instructing nature to do what at all times?
Destroy.
To destroy the world. And so God destroys the world. But which God are we talking about? Are we talking about the God of the higher intelligence, of the true source, energy of all source? No, it doesn't use that name in those verses. It never does. It's talking about the collective angels, the splinters of God, who choose to use their free will in order to resonate their various fetishes on this world and broadcast destruction to their neighbors. And so, yes, there seems to be a schizophrenic God if you don't have an understanding of the technology behind the legends and the verses. And this applies to all the ancient texts. It's not even limited to the Bible. You can go to the Assyrian texts, or you can go straight to the Book of the Dead. It does not matter. It all works with the same science, and it will be consistent in this fashion.